very beginning of our Mark study, and then again 2 weeks ago, I think, or something, we looked, the theme of wilderness came up. And I had mentioned that comes up a lot of places in the Bible. And first I thought I'd look at some of those places, but then I thought, it might be good to review the story. I know you all know this story, but sometimes it helps to just see it in order. So I printed out 3 chapters from Exodus, so you don't have to have a Bible with you because I know we only have our Mark things. And I wanted to just review it. So to begin with, the lead up to chapter 14 was the story of Moses' birth, and then he grows up in court because he's the
sister
puts him in the basket. The daughter of Pharaoh finds him. Even the water theme begins there, okay? He's on the water. He's saved that way. He's saved from going under the water because of how they put tar, to waterproof the basket. And so he is found by the daughter of Pharaoh, grows up in the court, and somehow it seems he knows that he's not Egyptian. He probably doesn't look Egyptian. So he ends up trying to break up a fight between a Hebrew slave and an Egyptian, and ends up killing the Egyptian, and then he flees and has his own sort of wilderness experience there. He stays with his father-in-law, who's a priest, marries one of the daughters, and then the burning bush. He's out one day, and there's a burning bush, and God says, "Yeah, I got a word for you. We're going to go back." And he wasn't happy about it. He came up with all sorts of excuses. They're actually kind of amusing because he tries also. Well, I really if I ever did this to Mom, she'd smack me. As a kid, the back talk. He's told to go, and he just has one excuse after another. This is in chapter 3, is the burning bush story, which I did not print out. But we won't do this that often, but if you do have your own Bible, or if you want to get a Bible, let me know, and I could give you some tips about where to get one. That's the same version.
I have a small Bible, because I have a Bible, but it's a big Bible.
Okay.
I can't carry it around.
Yeah. Well, it'll be about that size, but thicker.
About this size. Yeah.
You could get one that's like 5 by 8,
Yeah,
but
I would like to get one.
yeah, something like this, like that size. That would work.
That's what I want.
Yeah, I could help you get that. So anyway, and that would help because you can see Mark, but if I mention something else that gets you curious, you can always turn to that as well. In any case, he comes up with these excuses. First he says, all right, I've seen them. I've come down to deliver them. Now I'll send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Immediately. So he gives this whole thing about how he's heard, how the time, this is great stuff, because in this little passage, it gives you some understanding of, it ties into a Genesis promise that God made to Abraham about how he's going to make his people great and many. But I'll get all distracted if I do that. So Moses' immediate reaction after this grand announcement, I'm here, I've seen their affliction, I've heard their cries, I'm here to free them, and I'm going to send you. He says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? God says, but I'll be with you. And this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you've brought my people, brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Here's the sign. When you do it, you'll be back here. That's not as reassuring a sign as one might like, you know. Then Moses says, well, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? These are like little kids, just stalling.
What if?
Yeah, but could it be? But I'm hungry. Like they're going to bed at night, you know. I'm thirsty. I need water. And yeah. God, and this is, what's interesting is his little petty excuses are interspersed with some of the grandest pronouncements on God's part. So God responds, I am who I am, which is a play on the name Yahweh. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, which is why I thought it was kind of neat that it tied into the Abrahamic promise in Genesis 15, which is a beautiful passage. Maybe we'll do that one day if we have small numbers. This is my name forever, and thus I'm to be remembered throughout all generations. Go and gather so he goes on. I'm just going to skip ahead. And these are grand pride. They'll listen to your voice. You and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say, Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, and now please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. Bet you never heard that. The first request that God told Moses to make of Pharaoh was 3 days journey to worship. We have a festival we need to keep. It's not that far. We'll be back. That's the first request, was not, we'd like to move away and abandon our jobs here. And he, as you know, he said no even to that. And then it built and built. But, and I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go, you shall not go empty. But each woman shall ask of her neighbor and any woman who lives in her house for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing. You shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. They'll not go empty-handed. And then Moses says, but they won't believe me. Hang on, I do need glasses here. They will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they'll say, the Lord didn't appear to you. Anyway, you've got the picture. He continues this until he gives them some symbols, some signs. Put your hand in your, bring it out. It's leprous, thank you. And then his next excuse is, well, I don't speak, I'm not really good at public speaking. And he says, all right, I'll send your brother. He can go with you. So he just keeps fussing. And then he says, oh, yeah. Oh, this is the response I like. He says, I'm not very good at this. I'm slow of speech and tongue. Then the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. I would be cowed at this point. I would think, oh, okay, I pushed it. No, but Moses says, oh, my Lord, please send someone else. So he just pushes back and pushes back. And that's important because then you see the great leader he becomes after. But he's afraid and he tries. And God is incredibly patient with him in that whole interaction. And even sends Aaron to be his, what's it called?
Sidekick. Speaker.
Yeah, his
Mouthpiece.
mouthpiece. Thank you. I couldn't think of that word. His mouthpiece. All right, you say it. Okay, God said that, and they do this thing. So,
His mouthpiece.
Yes.
Isn't that from The Godfather?
I don't know.
I thought that, no, mouthpiece? What's a mouthpiece? I mean, where does it come from?
I don't know. You have your phone? You could look it up.
No, I don't
Oh,
have your phone.
It's been used for.
yeah, we'll look it up. So anyway, so he goes back and he sees the situation. The slaves are a mess. And then we have a stubborn Pharaoh, even though he presumably knows Moses. That's part of why Moses was picked. He grew up in the court. He can speak both languages, literally. And Pharaoh says, no, no, no. This is where the 10 plagues come in, one after another, and it's upped. And every time Pharaoh says, okay, okay. And then when God stops the plague, he says, nah, never mind, you're not going. Until the final plague, which was the death of the firstborn. And only the Egyptians' firstborn, including their animals, firstborn of all the animals, died. And not those of the Hebrews. And then he said yes. Even after that, Pharaoh changed his mind. But at this point, the Israelites had gotten out. So now they're on their way. And that sets up where we're going to start in 14. And the reason I where did it go? Yeah, I guess I should have printed a little bit more. I should have done a little bit of 13. So I'll just read that part to you, just a paragraph. When Pharaoh let the people go, God didn't lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, which if this is the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, and then this is Egypt down here, and Israel's up here, it's the shortest way. It's basically stick to the shore, and you could go up that way. He said, didn't send him that way, although that was near. God said, lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. You guys have heard of the Philistines, right? Do the Israelites, in your memory, best you remember it, have a good relationship with them or a bad relationship with them? The Philistines.
Was that, Goliath?
Goliath was a Philistine.
Philistine, I would say bad. Then.
Bad then. Yeah. They're constantly warring. It's one of the puzzles of history. They're not quite sure where they came from. But it is actually where Palestine comes from, is Philistia, the term. But they think maybe Minoan or something. They came and they took all the best land. They were apparently bigger. So he said, if they go,
Minoan, like Hawaiian, like
no. That.
Oh, I was. They're not Minoan.
No.
Those big guys.
No, there's a Crete maybe. Like they're not sure. But they sort of come on the scene.
Yeah.
They come on the scene, and they're a force to be reckoned with. They take the best lands, which are the ones right along the coast, which are not beachy, but verdant. You know, they're in the plains. And later on, when the Israelites, after this whole journey through the desert, go back to Israel, they can't get land on the coast or on the plains. So they end up kind of digging into the mountains, terracing the mountains to live in, as well as going north. But anyway, I wish I thought to bring my, one of the things I brought down from my office in Massachusetts was a big book of an atlas, a Bible atlas, to be able to show pictures. So in any case, and this is where it says so they go out, glasses again. So God led the people around by way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. So instead of a straight shot up, more westerly, he goes east and he goes through the wilderness, literal wilderness. There's nothing there, which is part of one of the reasons that it has been the historical reality of the Exodus has been doubted, because they say we have no remains. Well, there wouldn't be any remains in a desert. Nothing would survive. It'd be all desiccated and dried up. But anyway, they go through the wilderness and the kind of mountainous areas. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt, equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. All right. And then at the very last line, okay, and the Lord went before them by day. I'm on verse 21, Penelope. In a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and at night, by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. So God's with them on this trip. Now, this is the part where your passage begins. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hahiroth. Between Migdol, doesn't really matter geographically, but the point is, you shall encamp facing it by the sea. Okay, let's think about that. Remember the story in Mark about Jesus teaching on the right by the beach, basically?
Yeah.
And the apostles were a little concerned, so they put a boat behind him so they could get away. This is what is going on with the Israelites. They're camped right on the beach. And in who's coming? Well, we don't know it yet, but the Egyptians are chasing them. But what's behind them? The Red Sea. And there are no boats. So they're in that vulnerable position, as the apostles thought Jesus was, because they were crowding in. Okay. For Pharaoh will say of the people, they're wandering in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. And this is another one of those things that we may have to do over an evening with a couple of hours. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. So, meanwhile, back in Egypt, when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed toward the people, and they said, what have we done that we've let Israel go from serving us? So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, 600 chosen chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt. So the best chariots plus the other ones. All the chariots, you got it, with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them and camped by the sea, by Pi Hahiroth, in front of Baal Zephon. Okay, you get that? That's a really scary thing. It's not just that they're being chased. They're being chased, and they notice them coming when they're in this really precarious situation. They have nowhere to turn. They could go forward and try to fight the Egyptians, but remember the 600 chosen, plus all the other chariots, plus all the army officers, plus all the army. This is a horde. Okay. When Pharaoh drew near, people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. This is a great example of where I want you to kind of read into the text a little bit. They feared greatly. Sounds just very blah. But imagine that we're talking about they are just their lives. They think this is it. We're done. And it's not for the first time. Then they said to Moses, now they're going to grumble. Great salvation. They get all the gold and silver of the people there. They plunder the Egyptians. They go out ready for battle with riches. And it's the first, now granted, a legitimate threat of death. But they say, is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? Little snark. Oh, great. We could have just died there. But no, you take us out here. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Now, again, imagine yourself in their shoes. How would you rate their reaction? They fuss at Moses, who kind of came back and set the whole thing up, right?
Not trusting in
They're not trusting, but if you were there and you just did this whole trek out there and you saw the miracles, and it already told us about the pillar of cloud by day and the of fire by night, that doesn't happen every day. This is something real.
But the unknown is always frightening.
Of course.
And, I mean, they must have spent a lot of time frightened because
Yes.
really
Yeah, and I think that
they didn't know.
the snark aside, their next comment, it had been better for us to just stay there and serve. I think I would have thought that too. Have a little patience with them because, yes, they didn't trust. And we know that because we know the whole story. But if you go through it more slowly and imagine that you're in there, they have no idea what's coming next. They've never seen the sea split apart in two so that they can walk through. So they have no reason to think anything but death is facing them. And in that case, they're right. Yeah, it was rough, but at least we were alive and we were together. That was good. So, and I just, all to me triggered by they feared greatly. And Moses said to the people, "Fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for." Did I do this right? Yeah, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to shut up, to be silent.
That's right.
So that's it. We should have stayed there. And I think, I don't mean to, I think it was very, you could see Moses' strength in announcing it, but he's also recognizing that, no, I'm not afraid because what you're going to see is amazing. He didn't know the details yet, but God made a promise. And Moses, by now, he's getting it. As opposed to the guy who's blubbering, I don't like to speak in public, and, I don't have a great voice, and I mumble a bit, and, all right, fine, Aaron will do it for you. Here, he's stronger. And even promises the Egyptians whom you see today, you'll never see again. Okay, I'm probably have a little bit of hope. I'm still skeptical. The Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I'll harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots, and his horsemen." That's repeating what he said up in verse 4. Right? I'll get glory. And the reason that's worth noting, he said it here, it is part of why the theme comes up again and again. This is pointed to as, whoa, that's the God who brought them out and parted the sea for them, which is a miracle of miracles. But I like, what do you think about his, notice, Moses doesn't talk to God in verses 13 and 14, right? He's telling the people, "Fear not, stand firm, see the salvation of the Lord, which he'll work for you. For the Egyptians you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." So why is he rebuking Moses?
He's telling the people that God's going to do it. God says, "Moses, you do it."
He says, "What are you doing? Just tell him to go forward." Well, look what's in front of me. So with the rebuke, he also says, "Lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it." Of course. Why didn't I think of that, says Moses. But to his credit, he does that. So anyway, check this out. Remember it? The pillar, where were the pillars of cloud and fire?
Day and night.
They were day and night, and they were in front leading them, right? So look at what happens here. Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel. Here he equates the pillars with the angel. Who was going before them, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So, pillar of cloud, this is daytime, and the angel kind of are used interchangeably, both there. It's a little unclear. Angel is, I think I've said this before, the Hebrew word is the exact same word as messenger. So we have a different take on it when we hear that, but it just meant someone is the go-between between God and humans, right? So, but they're gonna move from before them, behind them, the angel, the cloud. And here's why that's significant. Coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all day. So he says, what are you talking to me for? Go forward and do this with your staff. And then he provides protection. He just said, go. So now there's a barrier, right? Between the host of the Egyptians and the host, which is another word for army. Lord of hosts is the same word as Lord of armies. And there was protection all night. So presumably, I don't know this, but it sounds as if the cloud was in the front and went in the back, then it wasn't the pillar of fire that went in the back, right? It was daytime. And yet we have daytime, the cloud and darkness. It seems like one of the other things that happened in the separation was there was darkness on Pharaoh. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, okay. Then he stretches his hand. Lord drew the sea back by a strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land. And the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And then the Egyptians pursued them, went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Notice when you have repeated phrases like that, you're moving from pure prose to little poetic prose. This is really lofty stuff, but we're still getting the story. We can take what we're reading and kind of plot it out on a piece of paper, because they're talking about places, what the sea looked like walls of water. I just want to point that out because you do get, there are times when you're looking at a text and if you want to know, is this like trying to be historical or trying to be science-y, you look for clues that it's also being poetic, which means, metaphors and analogies, which we use all the time. All right, and in the morning watch, the Lord, in the pillar of fire and cloud, looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians. So you have the scene. The Israelites go through. I was always struck by the fact that it makes the point twice to say dry land. Now, I would expect it to be boggy, and mushy and hard, a slog to get through. But I think twice makes the point to say dry land. And then he says he throws them into the Egyptians who follow through, and throws them into a panic. And the result of which the chariot wheels are clogged. Suddenly, it isn't smooth sailing. It's muddy and mucky, and they're getting stuck. And these grand chariots, the 600 plus the rest of them, are now having trouble, and they say, we better get out of here. We better flee. What happens next? Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back onto the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. So Moses does the same thing, but this time from the other side. And the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned, covered the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord. These are, by the way, anytime you see small caps, Lord with small caps instead of lowercase, you see that last one? Does it show in the copy I gave you? Mm-mm. It's just lowercase?
No, uppercase.
All upper, that either one. Either all uppercase or uppercase with small caps after it. Does that make sense? Basically, also uppercase form, but just a little bit smaller. That means it's Yahweh in the original text. If it has Lord, L, with lowercase O-R-D, it's the word for Lord or master. Okay? So this is what the people feared Yahweh, and they believed in Yahweh and his servant Moses. Okay, this is the great salvation. That's sort of your on-the-ground reporting of what happened. The reason I wanted to take a look at 15 as well is, to me, remember when I kept saying, we've talked about it many times in Mark, how there's sort of the two realities. You have what you see here, that someone's sick and God can heal him, or someone's possessed by a demon. And Jesus can wage war against the heavenly thing, the supernatural thing, and has power over that. So that things that are happening on this level, we often don't notice, but they're happening anyway. So here's almost your up here view, a report of the Exodus. Okay, then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord, saying, I will sing to the Lord, Yahweh, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. Actually, somebody else want to read for a bit? I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to be the only one.
I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him, my Father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host he cast into the sea. And his chosen officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrow your adversaries. You send out your fury. It consumes them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My desire shall have its fill of them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them, and they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. You have led in your steadfast love the people whom you have redeemed. You have guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. Because of the greatness of your arm, they are still as stone. Till your people, O Lord, pass by, till the people pass by whom you have purchased. You will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, and place, O Lord, which you have made for your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever.
Thanks. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's fabulous.
And notice a couple of things. It does tell the same story, but you notice whose arm stretches out? It's God's instead of Moses's. So it's recognizing this was a cosmic battle. And now we have it, this is back in prose, not the poem. For when the horses of Pharaoh, with his chariots and his horsemen, went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. This is kind of a repetition of what we had at the end of 14. Then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea."
Do the Jews still know this song?
I don't know what you mean.
It
They've
says that they sang this. I wonder. So this,
like I've artists have made songs like this. I could sing you one right now.
No, but I mean this song.
Yeah.
In the original language. Do the
Oh, I don't
Jews
know.
Have that? I should ask.
I just wanted to point out one more thing that is minor. The chapter heading is the Song of Moses. You see that?
Yeah.
But that part that, when I said that little prose bit, that I said was basically a repetition of what we found at the end of 14. And then we have the Song of Miriam. And Miriam sang to them. And it repeats one of the lines that we had. The horse and his rider, I sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. And here Miriam says, "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously." I read a paper recently that made the point, which I hadn't thought about, that this was most likely known as the Song of Miriam. And as women played less and less of a role, it became known as the Song of Moses. That, by the way, the Song of Moses is not in the Bible. That's people like me who translate the Bible who want to give you some kind of chapter heading so you can find stuff. I mean, I use them a lot. I find them helpful, but I don't always agree with how they title them. But that this was most likely Miriam, and the fact, and the argument she made was the fact that it was there at all, that we could see Miriam's name and the way it's a command, sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, almost sounded like she was the one leading that. And because it was so much part of their memory, they couldn't get rid of her completely. And the fact that she's still here, even though it's smaller than the Moses, indicates we have to say that it was her song too. So they did, that's a weird argument, but I think it's significant because you don't hear much about Miriam in all this. And yet you have this, it's like a clue, a breadcrumb left. And you see the clue and you think, well, that's odd because we haven't talked much about her. And yet this is one of the most important passages in the Bible, 14, 15, and then in chapter 20 with the Ten Commandments. Those scenes are some of the most critical. And Miriam is here, which means she was most likely a very big player. Well, we just don't have record of that. Most of the bards all of this was, before it was written, it was spoken. People were much better at memorizing things and telling stories and recounting history orally. All right, you guys still with me? Okay, the end of chapter 15 talks about, like, basically now we're going to kind of get back to normal, but I wanted to keep it in there because you have two sort of we have some miracles here, right? They head out away from the Red Sea, went into the wilderness. They went 3 days, found no water. That's a problem. When they came to Marah, they couldn't drink the waters of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore, it was named Marah, which means bitter. It doesn't say that, but it's what it is. And the people grumbled, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log, and he threw it into the water, and the waters became sweet. There's a miracle. Good. God's taking care of us. So we have that giant miracle where he comes between the Egyptians. He splits this. We get through no problem. They pursue us. We're scared again. You know, like you said, Mary, lots of fear, but then they're killed, every single one of them. And now we have a smaller miracle because they're grumbling again. They had no idea how they were going to get out of that scene where they're camped on the beach and the Egyptians are coming and they're sure they're going to die. And yet God delivers them there. So water seems a smaller concern, but they grumble. And then there the Lord made for them a statute and a rule. And there he tested them, saying, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of Yahweh your God and do that which is right in his eyes, give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians. For I am the Lord, your healer." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. So it's an oasis. They have water and date palms. Dates from date palms. All right, now this last thing we kind of read a bit of, because this is the manna story. They go out, they throw the log in the water. It makes the bitter water sweet that they can drink it. Then they find an oasis with dates. And now they're grumbling again. And again, some of this is very funny writing. And the whole congregation, this is verse 2 of chapter 16, grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, "Would that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Remember, that's their memory of life in Egypt. "We sat by the meat pots and ate bread till we were stuffed." That's not why God had to rescue them from there, right? They were slaves and punished. But that's their memory now. They only point out the good parts. I lost my spot. Hang on one second. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I'm about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. I'll take care of this. I'm going to pour out bread from heaven so that they can eat every day, and that I may test them. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily." So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, "At evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he's heard your grumbling against the Lord. For what are we that you grumble against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumblings, that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling isn't against us, but the Lord." And then this is your first hint of this little relationship of, not first, you've had it, but here's where you see Moses saying, "Psst, Aaron, tell them this. Say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he's heard your grumbling." Do you think God's heard their grumbling? We've had that repeated 4 times already.
Yeah.
And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Again, a cloud. They know that. And the Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat." In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. Now, interesting, they were hungry. God only told Moses he was going to send bread. But here now in the evening, they're going to have meat. Maybe because they fussed about meat pots and bread, both. And in the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" Ma in Hebrew is what, and with the N sound thrown in is it. Manna. They didn't know what it was. That's where the word manna came from. And he tells them to gather it and not leave any. But, verse 20, they didn't listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. And on the 6th day they gathered twice as much. 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow's a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid it aside till the morning as Moses commanded them, and it didn't stink. And there were no worms in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you'll not find it in the field. 6 days you'll gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none." And on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather. This would be nice little extra credit here. They found none. How long, he says to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days." I think it's interesting how in these couple chapters, you see that Moses kind of gets, he's when he stretches his arm, the poem says God stretched his arm. And when the people go out to check for food on the 7th day, it says he did that. So he's kind of a go-between. One of the unique things about Moses, Old Testament, a prophet is the one who represents God to the people. He's God's spokesman. He's God's emissary. Priests are the people's emissary to God. The priest represents the people to God and prays for them and asks forgiveness. Moses does both and sort of kind of acts like a king, even though they don't have kings. So you see him in a unique position of doing all of those things, prophet, priest, king, and it's interwoven. And that was a test to them because they had to trust. And it was so important. The very end of the chapter, this is in, let's read 31. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar, put an omer of manna in it, and place it before Yahweh to be kept throughout your generations." And as the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. This was one of the things that was in the Ark of the Covenant. It's not built yet, the Ark. That happens a bit later, but not too much later. And as well as Aaron's rod that budded, and I can't remember what else. Anyway, that was how important it was. This is what I did. I fed them. And I remember, Mom, you making a comment once on, I don't remember where it was. I think it may be one of the Psalms that was recounting this story. Mm-hmm. And it said their shoes didn't wear out the whole time. Mm-hmm. They were wandering in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. So there was a supernatural preservation. And all you have to do is just keep reading. I would encourage you to just skip Leviticus so you don't get lost and read Numbers. But they grumble all the time. And I get it. I guess it is hard, and we would too.
We still do.
Yeah, that's true. But
Grumble all the time about everything.
but when you read it, when we're reading this, we sort of get God's perspective, and you realize, wow, it's a little selfish, a little bit short-sighted. We're undervaluing the miracle that just happened, the many miracles. I also thought one thing he said, actually, this is what you had read, Penelope, with all the names of the peoples have heard. This is verse 14 of 15, chapter 15. Peoples have heard, they tremble. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Now are the chiefs of Edom dismayed. Trembling seizes the leaders of Moab. These are all not in Egypt. These are up north. This is where they're moving to. This is where the promised land is, and they have to go through Edom and Moab. And they all hear of it. In fact, when, the famous Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, walks around it, the walls fall down. It's Rahab, the prostitute, who hides the slaves. And one of the things she said, they asked, how do we know you're not going to betray us? And she says, I've heard about the Exodus. I've heard about what God did in bringing you up out of Egypt. So this becomes almost like God's calling card. He did what? He preserved them. It's a huge testimony. Yes. And it's used all the time. And we don't have time to do it today, but one of the ways it comes up again is as a place of healing and restoration too. Because that's what they needed. They'd been slaves. They didn't know how to be free people. And they had to learn. They had to be restored. So anyway, thanks for indulging that. I did want to
That's great. This is great.
to go through that. So when it comes up, you at least you'll know better